The Thracians were a group of Indo-European tribes inhabiting a large area in southeastern Europe. They spoke the Thracian language, a scarcely attested branch of the Indo-European language family. The study of Thracians and Thracian culture is known as Thraciology. Etymology. The first historical record about the Thracians is found in the Iliad, where they are described as allies of the Trojans in the Trojan War against the Greeks. The ethnonym Thracian comes from ancient Greek theta rho or theta rho kappa iota omicron sigma, Ionic theta rho eta iota kappa iota omicron sigma, and the toponym Thrace comes from theta rho kappa eta, ion, theta rho kappa eta. These forms are all exonyms as applied by the Greeks. Mythological foundation. In Greek mythology, Thrax was regarded as one of the reputed sons of the god Ares. In the Alcestis, Euripides mentions that one of the names of Ares himself was Thrax, since he was regarded as the patron of Thrace. Origins and ethnogenesis. The origins of the Thracians remain obscure, in the absence of written historical records. Evidence of Proto-Thracians in the prehistoric period depends on artifacts of material culture. Leo Klein identifies Proto-Thracians with the multi-cordoned ware culture that was pushed away from Ukraine by the advancing timber grave culture. It is generally proposed that a Proto-Thracian people developed from a mixture of indigenous peoples and Indo-Europeans from the time of Proto-Indo-European expansion in the early Bronze Age, when the latter, around 1500 BC, mixed with indigenous peoples. We speak of Proto-Thracians from which during the Iron Age Dacians and Thracians begin developing. Identity and distribution. Divided into separate tribes, the Thracians did not manage to form a lasting political organization until the Odrysian state was founded in the 5th century BC. A strong Dacian state appeared in the 1st century BC, during the reign of King Burebista. Including the Illyrians, the mountainous regions were home to various peoples regarded as warlike and ferocious Thracian tribes, while the plains peoples were apparently regarded as more peaceable. Thracians inhabited parts of the ancient provinces of Thrace, Moesia, Macedonia, Dacia, Scythia Minor, Sarmatia, Bithynia, Mysia, Pannonia, and other regions of the Balkans and Anatolia. This area extended over most of the Balkans region, and the Geta north of the Danube as far as beyond the Bug and including Pannonia in the east. History. Archaic period. These Indo-European peoples, while considered barbaric and rural by their refined and urbanized Greek neighbors, had developed advanced forms of music, poetry, industry, and artistic crafts. Aligning themselves in kingdoms and tribes, they never achieved any form of national unity beyond short dynastic rules at the height of the Greek classical period. Similar to the Celtic and Slavic tribes, most people are thought to have lived simply in small fortified villages, usually on hilltops, although the concept of an urban center was not developed until the Roman period. Various larger fortifications which also served as regional market centers were numerous. Yet, in general, despite Greek colonization in such areas as Byzantium, Apollonia and other cities, the Thracians avoided urban life. The first Greek colonies in Thrace were founded in the 8th century BC. Thrace south of the Danube was ruled for nearly half a century by the Persians under Darius the Great, who conducted an expedition into the region from 513 BC to 512 BC. The Persians called Thrace Scudra. Classical period. In the first decade of the 6th century BC, the Persians invaded Thrace and made it part of their satrapy Scudra. Thracians were forced to join the invasions of European Scythia and Greece. According to Herodotus, the Bithynian Thracians also had to contribute a large contingent to Xerxes' invasion of Greece in 480 BC. Subjugation of Macedonia was part of Persian military operations initiated by Darius the Great in 513 after immense preparations. A huge Achaemenid army invaded the Balkans and tried to defeat the European Scythians roaming to the north of the Danube River. Darius' army subjugated several Thracian peoples at the same time, and virtually all other regions that touched the European part of the Black Sea, such as parts currently of Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, and Russia, before it returned to Asia Minor. Darius left in Europe one of his commanders named Megabazus, whose task was to accomplish conquests in the Balkans. The Persian troops subjugated gold-rich Thrace, the coastal Greek cities, and defeated the powerful Paeonians. Finally, Megabazus sent envoys to Amyntas, king of Macedon, demanding acceptation of Persian domination, which the Macedonian accepted. At this time, many if not most Thracians fell under Persian rule. By the 5th century BC, the Thracian presence was pervasive enough that Herodotus called them the second most numerous people in the part of the world known by him, and potentially the most powerful, if not for their lack of unity. The Thracians in classical times were broken up into a large number of groups and tribes, though a number of powerful Thracian states were organized, such as the Odrysian kingdom of Thrace and the Dacian kingdom of Burebista. A type of soldier of this period called peltasts probably originated in Thrace. During this period, a subculture of celibate ascetics called the Testae lived in Thrace, where they served as philosophers, priests and prophets. In that period, contacts between the Thracians and classical Greece intensified. Before the expansion of the Kingdom of Macedon, Thrace was divided into 3 camps after the withdrawal of the Persians from Europe. A notable ruler of the East Thracians was Cersobleptus, who attempted to expand his authority over many of the Thracian tribes. He was eventually defeated by the Macedonians. Thracian civilization was not urban, and the largest Thracian cities may have been in fact large villages. The Thracians were typically not city builders, and their only polis was Southopolis. The conquest of the southern part of Thrace by Philip II of Macedon in the 4th century BC made the Odrysian kingdom extinct for several years. After the kingdom had been re-established, it was a vassal state of Macedon for several decades under generals such as Lysimachus of the Diadochi. In 279 BC, Celtic Gauls advanced into Macedonia, southern Greece and Thrace. They were soon forced out of Macedonia and southern Greece, but they remained in Thrace until the end of the 3rd century BC. From Thrace, 3 Celtic tribes advanced into Anatolia and formed a new kingdom called Galatia. In parts of Moesia, the Celtic Scordissa and Thracians lived beside each other, evident in the archaeological findings of pits and treasures spanning from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century BC. During the Macedonian Wars, conflict between Rome and Thracia was unavoidable. The ruling parties in Macedonia weakened and Thracian tribal authority resurged. But after the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC, Roman authority over Macedonia seemed inevitable, and the governing of Thracia passed to Rome. Initially, Thracians and Macedonians revolted against Roman rule. For example, the revolt of Andriscus in 149 BC drew the bulk of its support from Thracia. Several incursions by local tribes into Macedonia continued for many years, though a few tribes willingly allied with Rome, such as the Deneletae and the Bessi. After the Third Macedonian War, Thracia acknowledged Roman authority. The client state of Thracia comprised several tribes. Roman rule the next century and a half saw the slow development of Thracia into a permanent Roman client state. The Sapere tribe came to the forefront initially under the rule of Ruscuporus. He was known to have granted assistance to both Pompey and Caesar, and later supported the Republican armies against Antonius and Octavian in the final days of the Republic. The familiar heirs of Ruscuporus were then as deeply tied into political scandal and murder as were their Roman masters. A series of royal assassinations altered the ruling landscape for several years in the early Roman imperial period. Various factions took control, with the support of the Roman emperor. The turmoil would eventually stop with one final assassination. After Rhoemetalces III of the Thracian kingdom of Sapes was murdered in AD 46 by his wife, Thracia was incorporated as an official Roman province to be governed by procurators, and later praetorian prefects. The central governing authority of Rome was based in Perinthus, but regions within the province were uniquely under the command of military subordinates to the governor. The lack of large urban centers made Thracia a difficult place to manage, but eventually the province flourished under Roman rule. However, Romanization was not attempted in the province of Thracia. Balkansprachbund does not support Hellenization. Roman authority of Thracia rested mainly with the legions stationed in Moesia. The rural nature of Thracia's populations, and distance from Roman authority, certainly inspired the presence of local troops to support Moesia's legions. Over the next few centuries, the province was periodically and increasingly attacked by migrating Germanic tribes. The reign of Justinian saw the construction of over 100 legionary fortresses to supplement the defense. Thracians in Moesia were Romanized, while those in Thrace and surrounding areas will be known as Abessi, according to one of the most prominent Thracian tribe. At 6th century AD, Bessian language was still in use by monks in Mount Sinai Monastery. The history of Thracian warfare spans from c. 10th century BC up to the 1st century AD in the region defined by ancient Greek and Latin historians as Thrace. It concerns the armed conflicts of the Thracian tribes and their kingdoms in the Balkans and in the Dacian territories. Emperor Trajanus conquered Dacia after 2 wars in the 2nd century AD. The wars finished with the occupation of the fortress of Sirmisogetusa and the death of the king Decebalus. Apart from conflicts between Thracians and neighboring nations and tribes, numerous wars were recorded among Thracian tribes too. Barbarians Thracians were regarded by other people as warlike, ferocious, and bloodthirsty. They were seen as barbarians by ancient Greeks and Romans. Plato in his Republic considers them, along with the Scythians, extravagant and high-spirited, and his Laws considers them warlike nations, grouping them with Celts, Persians, Scythians, Iberians, and Carthaginians. Polybius wrote of Cotys's sober and gentle character being unlike that of most Thracians. Tacitus in his Annals writes of them being wild, savage and impatient, disobedient even to their own kings. Polyaenus and Strabo write how the Thracians broke their pacts of truce with trickery. The Thracians struck their weapons against each other before battle, in the Thracian manner, as Polyaenus testifies. Diogenes was considered one of the most bloodthirsty chieftains by Diodorus Siculus. An Athenian club for lawless youths was named after the Tribali. According to ancient Roman sources, the Dii were responsible for the worst atrocities of the Peloponnesian War, killing every living thing, including children and the dogs in Tanagra and Mycalessis. Thracians would impale Roman heads on their spears and rhomphaeas, such as in the Kallinikos skirmish at 171 BC. Herodotus writes that they sell their children and let their maidens commerce with whatever men they please. Religion. One notable cult that is attested from Thrace to Moesia and Scythia Minor is that of the Thracian horsemen, also known as the Thracian heroes. At Odysseus attested by a Thracian name as Heroes Karabasmos, a god of the underworld usually depicted on funeral statues as a horseman slaying a beast with a spear. Dacians had a monotheistic religion, the god name being Zalmoxis. Some think that the Greek god Dionysus evolved from the Thracian god Sabazios. Physical appearance. Several Thracian graves or tombstones have the name Rufus inscribed on them, meaning redhead, a common name given to people with red hair. Ancient Greek artwork often depicts Thracians as redheads. Rhesus of Thrace, a mythological Thracian king, derived his name because of his red hair and is depicted on Greek pottery as having red hair and beard. Ancient Greek writers also describe the Thracians as red-haired. A fragment by the Greek poet Xenophanes describes the Thracians as blue-eyed and red-haired. Men make gods in their own image. Those of the Ethiopians are black and snub-nosed. Those of the Thracians have blue eyes and red hair. Bacchylides described Theseus as wearing a hat with red hair, which classicists believe was Thracian in origin. Other ancient writers who describe the hair of the Thracians as red include Hecataeus of Miletus, Galen, Clement of Alexandria, and Julius Firmicus Maternus. Nevertheless, academic studies have concluded that Thracians had physical characteristics typical of European Mediterraneans. According to Dr. Beth Cohen, Thracians had the same dark hair and the same facial features as the ancient Greeks. Recent genetic analysis comparing DNA samples of ancient Thracian fossil material from southeastern Romania with individuals from modern ethnicities place Italian, Serbian and Greek individuals in closer genetic kinship with the Thracians than Romanian and Bulgarian individuals. On the other hand, Dr. Arsen Polianos states that Thracians, like modern Bulgarians, belong mainly to the Aegean anthropological type. After Christianization, see also Dacian language, Thracian language. The ancient languages of these people and their cultural influence were highly reduced due to the repeated barbaric invasions of the Balkans by Celts, Huns, Goths, Scythians, Sarmatians and Slavs, accompanied by Romanization and later Slavicization. However, Thracians did not entirely disappear, and they soon will be known as Abesi according to one of the most prominent Thracian tribe. Towards the end of the 4th century, Nicetas, the bishop of Remeshana, brought the gospel to those mountain wolves, the Bessi. Reportedly his mission was successful, and the worship of Dionysus and other Thracian gods was eventually replaced by Christianity. In 570, Antoninus Placentius said that in the valleys of Mount Sinai there was a monastery in which the monks spoke Greek, Latin, Syriac, Egyptian and Bessian. The origin of the monasteries is explained in a medieval hagiography written by Simeon Metaphrastus in Vita Sancti Theodorsii Coenobiarchi, in which he wrote that Theodosius the Cenobiarch founded on the shore of the Dead Sea a monastery with 4 churches, in each being spoken a different language, among which Bessian was found. The place where the monasteries were founded was called Cutile, which may be a Thracian name. Famous individuals. This is a list of historically important personalities being entirely or partly of Thracian ancestry. Orpheus, mythological figure considered chief among poets and musicians, king of the Thracian tribe of Cicones. Spartacus, Thracian gladiator who led a large slave uprising in southern Italy in 73-71 BC and defeated several Roman legions in what is known as the Third Servile War. Amadorcus, Thracian king. The Amadoc point was named after him. Teres, Thracian king who united the many tribes of Thrace under the banner of the Odrysian state. Sitalces, king of the Thracian Odrysian state, an ally of the Athenians during the Peloponnesian War. Burebista, king of Dacia. Decebalus, king of Dacia. Constantine the Great, Roman emperor, also known as Constantine I or Saint Constantine, was born to an Illyrian father and a Thracian mother. Maximinus Thrax, Roman emperor from 235 to 238. Regalianus, Dacian general who turned against the Roman Empire, becoming himself emperor for a brief period. Aureolus, Roman military commander. Galerius, Roman emperor from 305 to 311, born to a Thracian father and Dacian mother. Licinius, Roman emperor from 308 to 324. Maximinus Dia or Maximinus Daza, Roman emperor from 308 to 313. Justin I, Eastern Roman emperor and founder of the Justinian dynasty. Justinian the Great, Eastern Roman Emperor, either Illyrian or Thracian, born in Dardania. Belisarius, Eastern Roman general of reputed Illyrian or Thracian origin. Marcian, Eastern Roman Emperor from 450 to 457. Leo I, the Thracian, Eastern Roman Emperor from 457 to 474. Buses or Buzzers, Eastern Roman general active in the reign of Justinian the Great. Kutzes or Kutzes, general of the Byzantine Empire during the reign of Emperor Justinian I. Archaeology and treasures. The branch of science that studies the ancient Thracians and Thrace is called Thraciology. The archaeological research of the Thracian culture started in the 20th century and especially after World War II, mainly on the territory of southern Bulgaria. As a result of intensive excavation works in the 1960s and 1970s, a number of Thracian tombs and sanctuaries were discovered. More significant among them are the tomb of Sveshtari, the tomb of Kazan Lake Tatuul, Southopolis, Purpurikin, the tomb of Alexandrovo, Sarmizajusa in Romania and others. Also a large number of elaborately crafted gold and silver treasure sets from the 5th and 4th century BC were unearthed. In the following decades, those were exposed in museums around the world, thus gaining popularity and becoming an emblem of the ancient Thracian culture. Since the year 2000, Bulgarian archaeologist George E. Kitov has made discoveries in central Bulgaria which were summarized as the Valley of the Thracian Kings. The residence of the Odrysian kings was found in Starozal in the Sredna Gora Mountains. Panagurishta treasure, Rogozan treasure, Valchitran treasure, Borovo treasure, gallery, Thracian tribes and heroes. Map of the territory of Philip II of Macedon, Kingdom of Lysimachus and the Diadochi. Map of the Diocese of Thrace, 400 AD. Thracian Roman era, heroes, stela. A fresco of a red-haired woman in the Ostrusha Mound in central Bulgaria. Coin of Bergaios, a local Thracian king in the Pangaean district, Greece. A gold Thracian treasure from Panagurishta, Bulgaria.